Hello everybody, my name's Wolf. If this is your first time here, this is where I explain the crazy, over-the-top world of Warhammer 40,000 that nerds like me love so much. In this particular series, we're looking at the combat patrol boxes and what to do with them. So, settle in, grab a drink, and prepare for a Noob-Splaining session. And welcome to this week's video everybody. This week's shout out is for Trey Martinez, who requested the Black Templars. So, hey Trey, how are you? Right, let's get straight into it, shall we? Stoic, calm, reserved, logical, and fucking boring are 5 phrases that are synonymous with the 7th Legion, the Imperial Fists, who are led by their Primarch, Rogel Dorn, who is, I might add, a bit of a fucking beast, and definitely in the top 5 of Primarchs not to fuck with. He is also one of few Primarchs that can officially claim a Primarch kill. Anyway, in the aftermath of the Horus Heresy, Reboot Guilliman, the Primarch of the Ultramarines, decreed that the Great Legions would be split into chapters of 1,000 strong Marines. Each Legion would keep its original identity, colour scheme and preferred tactics, but become a chapter which is just a mere fraction of its original size. Except the Space Wolves, they technically stayed as a Legion, but didn't. Anyway, one of the many chapters to be founded from the Imperial Fists was the Black Templars. Stoic, calm, reserved, logical and boring is not words you would describe the Black Templars. Crazed religious nutjob berserkers would be way more accurate. These guys didn't just fall a distance from the apple tree, they rolled out of the field and caught a bus to the next fucking town. The only difference between these fucking psychotics and the Space Wolves is the Space Wolves drink beer in their downtime and the Black Templars worship Emperor Chris as a god extra hard, which is unusual for Space Marines. You see, most Space Marines see Emperor Chris as granddad and just a super powerful human, despite the fact he's been stuck on his throne longer than a constipated crack addict. Anyway, the Black Templars are probably the biggest chapter of Marines after the Space Wolves. Kinda. Okay, I know I'm being really vague here, so let's cover the Space Wolves thing very briefly. When Reboot Guilliman ordered the Legions to be split, Layman Rust, the Primarch of the Space Wolves, basically said, okay, I'll split my Legion into 12 grey companies that will operate autonomously, and that was enough for Reboot, probably because he didn't want Rust to kick his fucking teeth in. Anyway, the Space Wolves already were 12 great companies that operated autonomously, so when the chapters were founded, we had one chapter of Ultramarines, one chapter of Dark Angels, one chapter of Imperial Fists, and technically 12 chapters of Space Wolves, making them around 12,000 strong. I say around, as the Inquisition isn't stupid enough to try a headcount, not after the kicking they received during the Months of Shame. Reminds me, I must do a video on that. So the Space Wolves are in a way still a Legion, but not, because they all just do their own thing. Which is basically find bad guys, murder the fuck out of them, go home, drink beer and maybe do some ice fishing as well. Now when the chapters were formed, they were limited to around 1,000 Marines per chapter. Obviously this number fluctuates a little depending on combat losses and recruitment, because becoming a Space Marine isn't a 16-week basic training and a 32-week combat course. However, somebody did put it in the small print of the chapter rules that if a chapter declares a crusade, then it can increase its number to the level required to complete said crusade, and then must return to 1,000 Marines when the crusade is over. Makes me wonder if someone thought they would just demob some Space Marines into civilian life. Thanks for your service, buddy. Crusade's over. Here's $200, a 1-bedroom apartment, and a job in a call centre selling extended car warranties. Anyway, someone in the Black Templars noticed this small print, and so they instantly declared the chapter to be on a crusade, and decided as soon as it's finished they would declare another one. But so far they've managed to drag this fucker out for 10,000 years. This means they can push the chapter numbers as much as they want. As a result, only the High Marshal of the Black Templars knows the actual full number. I've seen many numbers banded around like 1,300 to 2,000 Space Marines. But also the Inquisition think there may be as many as 6,000 active Black Templars. Now that may sound a lot, but remember the average Legion was around 100,000 strong. So 6,000 Templars or 12,000 Wolves is just a drop in the ocean compared to the days of the Legions. But back then there were only 18 active Legions. Now we have officially, we're told, 1,000 chapters. But I think it's fair to assume that number is probably closer to 1,500 chapters now, especially with the massive influx of Primaris Marines to bolster the original Astartes, as well as many Astartes chapters that were completely wiped out and are being resurrected now as pure Primaris. Unlike a lot of chapters that have an assigned area of space to protect, the Black Templars are a fleet-based chapter, meaning they roam the galaxy just looking for a fight and more recruits. In actual fact, they have multiple fleets heading in multiple directions at any one time. The Black Templars' first chapter master, or as officially known, the High Marshal, was a Space Marine called Sigismund, who was a Space Marine of epic levels of badassery. Now, most Imperial fists were stoic and calm and fucking boring. Sigismund was born to crusade and fight, and fuck me can he fight. At the time of the Horus Heresy, it's fair to say Sigismund was by far the best duelist space marine to have stalked the galaxy, and apart from Primarch levels of power, nothing could really stand in his way. It was 5 years after the Horus Heresy that Abaddon declared his first Black Crusade, and the Black Templars, led by Sigismund himself, were the first to step up to the plate to face him. Sigismund at this point was a bit of a knackered old man, and Abaddon was buzzing on chaos power-ups. Sigismund managed to impale Abaddon with his power sword, but alas, Abaddon just took the hit like a tank, then disemboweled Sigismund with the same power claw that Horus used to turn Emperor Chris into a psychic lighthouse. In a rare showing of respect and humanity, Abaddon claimed Sigismund's body and actually had it delivered back to Terra, which was nice of him. Had Sigismund lived, he would have been interred in a dreadnought and would still be kicking ass to this day. The Black Templars are based upon the Knights Templar, complete with a Maltese cross as their chapter logo, and just like the Knights, they are on a permanent religious holy crusade to smite the enemies of the god of mankind, Emperor Chris, and they have been known to blur the lines on occasion, all in the name of that great crusade. There is loads more I could talk about when it comes to these guys, some of which they have committed, many would consider heresy in the name of Emperor Chris. But this is supposed to be a combat patrol review, rather than a look at the faction, so let's have a look at what's in the box, shall we? We get a Primaris Marshal, Primaris Crusader Squad, comprising 1 Sword Brother, 5 Initiates and 4 Neophytes, 5 standard Primaris Intercessors, and 1 Primaris Black Templar Impulsor APC, as well as a Black Templar upgrade sprue and 226 Black Templars transfers. This is quite an interesting box set. An initial look says it's very well balanced and definitely feels like a Black Templars box set, as so far it's the only Space Marine chapter box set that includes models from their standalone codex. In fact, it's only the Intercessors that are from the generic codex, and the addition of the Initiates and Neophytes is a real good touch, showing how they are constantly recruiting and testing wannabe Marines in the crucibles of war. So let's take a look at them in more detail and how to use them. The Primaris Marshal is your army leader and basically a Primaris captain, and as always, pretty much better in melee than he is in ranged. He has a surprisingly low toughness of just 4, but with 5 wounds, a standard 3+ save and a 4+ invulnerable, he can tank a few hits. As standard, he gets a mastercrafted power weapon and a plasma pistol. The plasma pistol can be swapped for a combi weapon. Basically, the plasma pistol is good against characters and vehicles, and the combi weapon good against any kind of infantry, so it all depends which of the enemy units you think will give you most trouble. He has a massive 6 attacks in melee, which is fairly scary on its own, but once per battle he can jump that up to 9 attacks, and the weapon gets devastating hits keyword until the end of that fight phase. Like most Space Marine commanders, he can once per turn, that's both yours and your opponent's, use a stratagem on another unit for free, even if you've already used that stratagem this turn on a different unit. Next, the Primaris Crusader Squad. I like the addition of this as it's a good touch, and also a squad from the standalone codex and the actual Black Templars model range. Quick bit of lore again, as the Black Templars are constantly on crusade and get into more bar fights than a drunken Irish UFC champion, you know which one I mean, they are constantly recruiting more potential Marines. Usually a Marine Neophyte, which is a Marine recruit, will be trained and indoctrinated until they have received all their implants, which can take anything up to 10 years. They are then promoted to Initiate and serve as scouts until they prove themselves worthy, and are then made full-blown battle brothers and given their power armour, for most chapters anyway. The Black Templars, however, throw their neophytes into the crucible of war when they've just had a handful of their implants, and they are trained and led by Initiates looking to earn their power armour, who in turn are led by Sword Brother. It's an interesting squad as the Sword Brother and Neophytes are clearly a melee unit, but the Initiates are equipped for more ranged, as they have bolters and the rest are bolt pistols. You can opt to make the Neophytes more ranged or the Initiates more melee. I would go for the melee option, so swap the Initiates bolt rifles for bolt pistols and chainswords. Besides, chainswords are a much more Templar thing, and I think it's good to have a dedicated melee unit and a dedicated range unit, and the Intercessors already bagged the range slot. Now, the Intercessors. Just 5 standard Primaris with bolt rifles, good for mowing down weak to average infantry, and can capture a point and move on and it's still yours till the enemy physically capture it. As there's 5 of them in the squad, one of them gets to have the underslung grenade launcher option for free, so you might as well take it. That grenade might come in handy at some point. And don't forget, being Space Marines, they can tangle in melee, but primarily you want the squad shooting up the enemy, but if you do get the opportunity to charge into combat, go for it. Finally, the Impulsor. It has the capacity for just 6 models, with a firing deck of 6, meaning any models inside get to shoot during the shooting phase, which is nice. As standard, it has 2 Storm Bolters, which can be swapped for grenade launchers, but stick with the bolters in my opinion. On top of that, you can give it an Iron Hail Heavy Stubber or a Multi-Melter. Basically, the Heavy Stubber is good against weak to average infantry, the Multi-Melter good against elite or heavy infantry, characters or vehicles, but to get the best out of your melter, you're going to need to be within 9 inches of the target. You also then get to pick either another gun or an accessory upgrade. Choices are a Bellicus Missile Array that can use different missiles to be effective against pretty much everything, the Sky Talon Array, which is most effective against aircraft, an Orbital Comms Array, which if you use a stratagem on a unit that is within 6 inches of the Impulsor, you have a 1 in 3 chance of gaining a CP point, and the Shield Dome, that gives it a 5+ invulnerable save. What you take depends on what you want to use this thing for, so let's break it down. So, embed the Marshal in the Crusader Squad and have them chop people up in close combat. Don't fuck around and get pushing them up the battlefield quickly. This squad is meant to murder the shit out of people rather than capture points. Now, stick the Intercessors in the Impulsor and have it deliver them to a CP point for them to get out, capture it, and the next turn get back in so they can move on and capture another one. The Impulsors and the Intercessors should be distracting your enemy and drawing fire, allowing the Marshal and his squad to close into combat, who will then totally fuck up the enemy. It's a gamble. And if the opponent clocks this, chances are the firepower will be aimed at the Marshal, but that means you're taking away a technical victory from all the CP points you captured and moved on from. If not, then you're getting a board wipe victory, as once the Marshal and his friends start swinging those melee weapons about in combat, your enemy is in deep fucking trouble. So, what to add next? Well, I would top out the Crusader Squad to its maximum amount, which is 1 Sword Brother, 11 Initiates and 8 Neophytes, making it a big fucking squad of 20. Get a second squad of this, and get either Chaplain Grimaldus to lead them or High Marshal Helbrecht, both of which are just absolute animals. Now top up your Intercessors to 10 models and get a second squad. You're going to then need some big guns, so some Devastator class Marines. You want 1 squad with anti-infantry heavy weapons, and 1 squad with anti-vehicle heavy weapons. Perhaps also a Dreadnought or 2 for the sheer firepower they both bring in range to melee. Hang on, there's something missing here. Wait a fucking minute! Where's the fucking Land Raider? How can you forget the fucking Land Raider? Also, don't forget, you want a Land Raider, because, and say it with me folks, Land Raiders are fucking cool. And there we have it folks, that brings us to the end of another video. If you made it this far, thank you very much. If you would like a shout out in one of my videos, then just email me on the email address in the description. Also, please check out my links for Baron of Dice and Element games, and if you really want, you can buy me a coffee. In the meantime, please like, subscribe, and share this video with someone who could do with some Noob-Splaining in their life.